Welcome everyone, my name is Raul. We're gonna be talking about cluster virtualization in order to mitigate denial of service attacks. Most specifically, those that are being launched by groups like Anonymous. So let's start right away with the agenda. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the SAN storage area networks. We're going to talk about the SAN specific modules. Then we're going to go into the high availability configuration. How can we do a node virtualization, redundancy for all of our data. And then we're going to see a little bit about the protection against tools used by Anonymous. Tools such as the low orbit ion cannon and those that are based on the web. So let's start by understanding the basic SAN configuration. Here in this picture we have basically, let's go back. We have basically our standard SAN configuration. Let's understand that you will not need to purchase additional infrastructure. You don't need to purchase like fiber optics or anything like that. It works with just your Ethernet infrastructure that you already have in your company. You do not need to purchase anything else. All you need is a segregated iSCSI network. It's going to be segregated from the internet. And then what you're going to use to administer all of these clusters, it's a software called CMC, the Center Management Console. That's going to be our window to do all the administration on the clusters. So here we see we have 4 different nodes. These are our basic SAN IQ nodes. When we cluster processes, we're gonna be adding the power of all of our nodes. Let's say we have a quad core processor here, and here. When we create our SAN IQ cluster, we're gonna be adding the power on all of these processors to make a very powerful cluster. But not only, this thing keeps going back, sorry. Not only do we add the power of the processor, we also add the power of the memory that we have on each of these nodes, and we also add the bandwidth of each of these nodes. So the more nodes you have, the more processor power you will have, the more bandwidth you will have to manage all of your data. So let's continue. Where do we use this software? We use this software for high availability and big corporations such as the eBay, FBI, NSAS, military bases, hospitals, banks, Disney, etc. It's a large clientele that we have using this kind of software. But again, if you don't have such a big infrastructure for your company, you can always use virtualization, which will save you a lot of money because you will not need to have the whole amount of hardware in order to have all of these great techniques available to you. So let's explain a little bit. This is one of the easiest algorithms that I'm gonna show you how the data replication is managed on one of these nodes. So the network rate is going to replicate data between the nodes. All of this data is done at a block level data, so it doesn't matter what operating system you're gonna be using. Everything's done under the block level data. So let's say we have 3 regular nodes here. Let's suppose you're gonna save a single file, single MP3 file that we have here, that it's about 6 megabytes in its size. So let's say just for these purposes, that A plus B plus C it's equal 6 megabytes of your MP3 file. So each of these ports is going to be roughly about 2 megabytes, A, B, and C. The way that the algorithm works, having 3 nodes as such, we're going to separate the data in this way: A, B, C, and then B, C, A. That way, let's say this node completely fails, we have an intrusion, it's being under attack, you can still retrieve your MP3 file because you have A, B, and C. The same is true if you lose this node here in the middle. Let's say you don't have these 2 parts, you still can recover your data because you have A, B, and C. So no matter which node you lose, you can lose one node entirely, it's 12 hard drives, you will still have access to your MP3 file. Another advantage of this algorithm is that, let's say you have an intrusion, a hacker is attacking your network and they gain access to this node right here. What they're going to see is a corrupted file because they only have A and B. They cannot retrieve the whole MP3 file because they're missing C. So this works really well against intrusions and protecting your data. If they access only one of your nodes, they will not get access to your data. The data is split between these nodes here, so they will not have access unless they break into at least 2 of the nodes. So let's continue. Now, as I was saying, this is compatible with Windows, Linux, HP, UX. It doesn't matter because everything's handled to the block level access. You can use it under different file systems. It does not matter. And then the CMC, the software that you use to administer all of this software, it's made in Java. That means that you can support different platforms. It runs under Windows, it runs under Linux. It's cross-platform compatible. Now we're going to be talking about the managers and Quorum. These managers are part of the software that, let's think about a big meeting at the Congress. When we need something to be done, there should be quorum. There should be a minimum amount of votes. So this is the same. When we're going to do an input-output operation, we ask the software which node has less processes going on, which node has less input-output operations, and the managers are going to vote which node has the less load at that time. So for that, in order for that to work, we need an impair number of managers. Because if we have an even number, that will result in votes being divided equally, and that does not help us. We need an unpaired number of managers. The manager determines which node has the less IOs at the moment. Now we can have as many clusters as we want inside one of the management groups. If we don't have, like I was saying, we don't have the big infrastructure like FBI, eBay, we don't have that kind of infrastructure, we can always rely into the VSA, which is the Virtual Storage Appliance, which runs on any machine running 1 GB of RAM, You don't need a huge amount of RAM to run these VSAs. Now we're gonna be mentioning also that we have virtual managers or FOMs, the failover manager, in case one of the nodes goes down, like I was showing on the previous slide. In case one of the managers goes down, we have an automated recovery system, which is the failover manager, which is going to maintain Quorum if one of the nodes with an active manager goes down. So let's continue. This is the VSA I was telling you about. It runs VMware Hyper-V SAN on Linux. As you can see here, it's just a virtual machine that you can run on your Windows machine. It's going to run the proprietary SAN operating system, which is the operating system that we use for these nodes. So it is based on Red Hat 5. If you're familiar with Red Hat, then you'll feel just at home with this operating system. You just need to run the VSA and you will have automatically one virtual node. You can run as many VSA as your machine can handle. I've seen laptops running 4, even 5 VSAs without a hitch. So this will add high redundancy for your data. If you have several VSAs, you can run even operating systems there, whatever you want. That does not matter. So let's continue. To configure the VSA, we only need to assign one IP address, its gateway, and subnet mask. That's it. That's all the configuration we need to do. Like we see here in this example, we just assign the IP address inside of the iSCSI network. Of course, it just needs to be inside of our iSCSI network, the mask and gateway, and that's it. That's all we have to configure. In most cases, it works out of the box. That's the only configuration we need to do for the VSA to start working. Now, the NIC bonding. We have 3 different types of bonding that we can use on these nodes. We have the adaptive load balancing, active passive, and link aggregation. The adaptive load balancing is the one that uses both NICs to balance the load. Like the name says, is the one we recommend, and it will give you the best performance because each of the nodes contains two NICs of 1 gig. You can also expand, like it says here, to 2 of 10 gigabit network, but the standard one comes with 1 gigabit network. So those 2 NICs can be used to balance the load across the network. Now, if we use active passive, it's going to use only one of the NICs, and in case one of those fail, it will use the other one. That's why it's called active passive. And the other one, the link aggregation, is in case we need more bandwidth, we need more speed, we can add the speed of both of those NICs and have a 2 gigabit link. This is good if we're going to transfer big files, if we're going to be doing some kind of heavy load on these kind of environments. Now, also an important thing for this to work, we need to configure all across all of our network needs to be the same. What I mean is we need to configure our switch with the flow control. We need to configure, if we're going to use jumbo frames, we need to enable the jumbo frames on the switch and on our SAN itself. So in order to avoid problems, we need to have the same configuration all across the network. Also, the via Vsphere we can use what it's called the virtual switches, which they're going to give us the exact same functionality, and we're going to be able to do the same kind of bondings. These three type of bondings that we have here, we can do it via Vsphere with a virtual switch. Now, changing bonds on the fly, it's really simple. It just requires, sorry about that, just requires a couple clicks. Here, as you can see, there's a dialog here, and we can just select the different kind of bonding. It will lose connectivity for about 5 seconds or so, and then it's good to go. On Vsphere we can create a VLAN with 2 different virtual switches, and we will bond the switches directly on Vsphere. That's the only difference. Now we have disaster recovery embedded into the software. In case of emergency, we can do a rollback to a previous version with just one click. It's just right click, roll back to an old copy of the volume, and that's it. Now, if let's say here you're under attack, your network is being attacked, you can change the VIP, which is the virtual IP holder, to a different node. Let's say you're getting attacked on one of your nodes, which is the VIP holder. With one click, you can change the VIP to another node, and the attack will stop immediately, because whoever's attacking that IP is just going to be attacking that VIP that it's probably exposed to the internet. So if you change your VIP, you can change it in one click, and that will stop immediately your attack right there. You can have as many nodes as you want, so you can change from one to the other as many times as you want. You can use the virtual nodes that I was telling about to, let's say you have 4 virtual nodes on one laptop. The attacker is not going to know which node is he attacking, because the VIP holder is the one that connects all your SAN environment to the internet. So the attacker does not know which node they're going to be attacking. They're just going to be going against the VIP, which you can change on the fly. Here's the link if you want to try the VSA. It runs VMware Hyper-V SAN, like I mentioned. This is a good piece of software. You want to try this kind of replication that I was talking about. Alright, so let's continue with the remote copy and virtualization of clusters. Here we have 2 different structures, the remote IP copy versus the multi-site configuration. Like we see here, the big difference is that we add the power of the clusters in location 1 with the power of the cluster in location 2, and we create a big cluster. These 2 locations could be separated 50 miles, it doesn't matter. And we're going to be using the power of these processors all together combined to provide and serve data to all of our servers here. The remote IP copy is just going to have its own cluster on each location, and then it's going to replicate the data with just one link, like we see here. You can have a copy of this whole cluster right here for availability. Now, the incremental snapshots. These are very useful because they save space. The incremental snapshot only saves what has been changed in the past, only the additional bits of data, so it doesn't do a complete backup of the volume. It does a full backup and then incremental ones, which is just whatever you save on the day, whatever you save between the schedule of snapshots, it's going to be saved incrementally. Now, we need to understand that there's no 100% protection against the denial of service. But what we're going to be showing is a couple techniques where you can mitigate and decrease the impact until it's barely noticeable. That's our main goal, because we cannot protect 100% any environment. We're going to try to mitigate the impact. So we're going to be talking about the fractional bandwidth and volume failback mirroring. These are very powerful techniques against denial of service attacks. Now, here, as you can see, we have a very easy way to change the bandwidth of our management group. There's just a sliding bar here. We can go from 4 to 40, even more, whatever we want. We have a drop down here, we can change the bandwidth. So if you're under attack, you can assign a fractional bandwidth that responds to the pings but does not interfere with performance. What that means is that, let's say one of your nodes is being under attack, you're going to reduce the bandwidth of that node to its minimum. It will be right about here, .25. We're going to reduce the bandwidth of that node. So that node will still be alive, but since the bandwidth of that node it's going to be so small compared to the other ones, all the attacks that are going to that node are going to the effect of the attack is going to be really minimal. It's going to be like we don't even see the attack because the bandwidth of the node is so small. It doesn't matter how strong the attack is going. If you have even a botnet going against your node, it might take it down for a while, but since the bandwidth is so small compared to all of your other nodes, it's not gonna matter. So what we can do is just decrease the bandwidth and wait for the attack to finish. That way it's not going to disrupt any of our daily operations. We can just apply this technique to any of our nodes that are being under attack. The attacker is going to think that the node is still performing like it normally would. They're going to continue attacking because it will have a small bandwidth that allows the attacker to get a ping response from the node. If they see that the node is pinging, they think their attack is being deflected by a different method. So if we, let's say we turn off the node, they will think that all of the environment is down, something like that. So what we want the attacker to think is that they still have a chance of taking down the environment, but actually they're not affecting any of the operations. Now the volume failback mirroring. We configure the BIP so it accesses a remote volume X time. Let's say you're being attacked on one of your volumes. For example, you have an SQL database that is being attacked by many requests per second. You can change that volume. You can, if you have these kind of environments with a SAN, you will have a replication of that volume on a different node. So you can change the data being served to your external server from going from volume A, from volume A prime, from volume B, etc. It doesn't matter. You can change the data being served from any of the volumes that you have. You can have as many volumes as you want, and that will trick the attacker into thinking that they got one of the volumes, but instead they're gonna be seeing the data coming from a different volume. It is kind of complex, but the main purpose of this is to trick the attacker into thinking that they got the right piece of data. Now, let's see. We can have a recent copy of the volume with the same IP. So for the attacker, they're going to be launching their program against one of the IP that is exposed to the internet. But we on the back end of the software, we can change it, so it will go to a different volume. Let's say every hour. Every hour you access to the SQL database. One time we'll go from volume A, then the next time we'll go from volume B. So it makes it really difficult for the attacker to determine which volume they're attacking. Now, these are the point and fire tools used by Anonymous. Some of you may know this kind of tools. This is the low orbit ion cannon, which basically just asks for a URL and you press a button and it starts sending requests like there's no tomorrow. These kind of attacks are let's say simple to stop, because they're not being a high complex packet being sent. It's just TCP, UDP packets being sent depending on the speed of your network. What makes these tools powerful is that they have a lot of people using them. So when they try to take down one of the servers, they distribute this program to millions of people. So that's what actually causes the load on the server. It's not the program by itself, because if one person were to use this little software here, they will probably do nothing to most of the servers. The problem comes when the distributed denial service comes in place, where millions of people are attacking the same IP address, the same URL. That's when we see the issues. Now here is the other one. This is web-based denial of service, which again is just sending requests from this website. This kind of attack is easier to stop, because as soon as we identify the IP address of the server that's launching the connections, we can just block it from IP tables or something like that. This one is more difficult because it's going to use the IP address of each person running the software. This one will launch the attack with the IP address of the website. It doesn't matter if 10,000 people open this website, all of the attacks are coming from the same web server where this script is hosted. So it's much easier to stop this kind of attack here at the bottom. Now, the iSCSI Initiator. This one comes already installed Windows 2008 server. If you have 2003, you can download it for free. The iSCSI Initiator allows us to connect the volumes from the SAN to our Windows or Linux host. This is what we're going to use to link between our SAN environment and have our data available on our Windows or Linux server. So this is the protocol we use, iSCSI. Now let's say we have Windows 2008 server that we want to host mycompany.com. We can create one volume for the database and one volume for the different files such as the JPEG, PHP, etc. So in this case scenario, we should install like all the services like Apache, SQL, PHP directly here on our Windows 2008 server, and all the data like the database, the different files, we're gonna be serving those files from the SAN, which is where we need the data replication, the high availability. That way we're gonna be having redundancy and replication of our database and files. Now to configure the iSCSI, it's really simple. You just open the iSCSI Initiator on Windows, and here it will give you the initiator name. You just copy and paste this here into this dialog of the CMC software, and these will here need to be checked the allows via iSCSI. This will automatically create the link between your SAN and your Windows host. That way you will be able to see your volumes from your Windows server. Now to assign the volume, you go to right click, computer management, and then you will see the new volume as an unallocated partition on your disk. You can just initialize this and you will see it just as any other Windows volume. As a network volume, you will be able to put the data into the volume. All of the process of the SAN is going to be completely transparent to you. It's just like you're gonna be handling a different partition on your disk. Now the open source alternatives here. this is well, a cruel joke that we always do on these presentations. The open source alternatives are going to be listed on the next slideshow, so pay attention. There it is. No, just kidding, but really, there are no open source alternatives to this day. Unfortunately, because the nature of the software, you can certainly try. You can try to get the software a trial version of 60 days, but there are no open source alternatives up to this point. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me, send me an email, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.